Hello, hello, hello. Welcome in, welcome in. Appreciate you joining Professor Flood Sports Cards on YouTube and your support. Whether you're just having insomnia or whatever else is going on in your life, we appreciate you stopping by and listening for a little bit, my ramblings. Today I decided to change it up a little bit from the reselling idea and buying and selling cards to a little bit about my background in the hobby and how that has shaped. And I think during my career as a scientist, everything has happened for a reason. Everything has happened that shapes my career goals, my ambitions and things like that. And I think the same thing happens in our hobbies and in our daily life, obviously, but in our hobby. And for me, I grew up in a small town in southeastern Indiana, and we didn't have much going on there. We didn't even have a football team in my high school growing up. So it was a pretty small school, but what we did have was, being about an hour from Cincinnati, an hour from Louisville, Kentucky. And so, we had access in just a little short time period to get to some bigger cities. And of course, I have a brother who's 3.5 years older than me. I was born in '63. And by the time the Big Red Machine was in full force in the early 70s, I was just hitting around puberty and stuff. So that was kind of cool. I was able to get some free tickets because I was good scholastically. We had a program at my school where you got straight A's. You got like tickets to 3 free baseball games a year, which was kind of cool to me. I was like, hey, you got free. And my dad was all about free. But he would take us and still hopefully have a good time. But how I kind of got into sports card collecting was, so you can see I'm kind of still a big guy. I was loved to eat, still love to eat. And I think my mom would always ask every time she went to the store. We had a store about 2 miles away from us. It's a little tiny country store, but they always had something for kids. And my mom would ask almost every time she left to go get something because she would do the cooking for her family. And we were a tobacco and dairy farm, and she did most of the milking. So during the day, she would be cooking for people who were doing harvesting and planting crops and stuff like that. And I would always ask for baseball cards, a pack of baseball cards, or football cards, or even hockey, I think, occasionally. I don't know. You guys know how much I love hockey if you know me. And I guess for basketball cards too. I had some of the tall boys, remember some of those. So I got into the hobby that way, and I just remember some of the good times with the hobby as far as my brother and I loved to play wiffle ball when we had some free time. And we would use the side of the house as a backstop because we couldn't be accurate and throw very well. But we used to take our cards and we would create these fictional lineups. Okay, I'm Pete Rose and Johnny Bench and, all these players. And it wasn't just exclusively Reds. It was obviously the stars of the day. But for me, it was hard because I like some players that batted left-handed. And so we made the rule that you had to bat the same way that the player did. You created your lineup and you had to bat the same way. And we didn't do very good with if you had a left-handed pitcher, you just got to go ahead and throw right-handed. We were both right-handed. But it was just kind of cool to think back on those days where we used baseball cards and there was, we had the game where you spun the wheel and you got a hit or an out or things like that. So some of those old time games where they had players' names and how often they hit home runs, and you played a 9-inning game and stuff like that. So it was always kind of fun growing up around sports. My brother was a big time athlete. I was more the scholastic. as you can tell from my flannel. But that's kind of shaped. When I was 12 years old, obviously the Reds won the World Series. And when I was 13, the Reds won the World Series. So I kind of got spoiled a little bit there until 1990 when they won again. They haven't won since. And that's okay. That's why we stick with our teams, because we have a connection to them, a connection to the players. I collected for, a good while when I was younger, and then I stopped, as most of us usually do. And then I picked up, unfortunately, right around the time of the junk wax era. And I remember having a 1989 Score football set, and I wanted to trade it in because I wanted some other packs to open up. And I was super excited about opening up. And my friend Eric loves the 87 Topps. So I traded, for anything that was new at that point, because I loved building sets and putting together, did some buying and trading with some other people. And then when my son was born, I got rid of all my cards and then didn't pick it up until the last few years when I started collecting again and getting into the hobby a little bit more for buying and reselling. So, that shapes me who I have been in the past. Collecting in the early 70s. I got to find that card. I still have a bench rookie card that's been just mangled. I mean, mangled. And you'll be shocked when you see it. But I hope you all can join me on Whatnot. I got some cool shows coming up this weekend, but I know you all are watching whenever you're watching. But check me out on Whatnot. It's ProfessorFlood. On YouTube, it's ProfessorFlood Sports Cards, and on Instagram, ProfessorFlood_Sports Cards. So appreciate y'all listening to my crazy stories about growing up, being a Reds fan, and how I remember some of the fond memories of using the cards and interacting with the cards. I never put them in bike spokes or anything like that. But I always loved the cards and loved statistics on the back and how we use them for our wiffle ball games. So hopefully you enjoyed today. I love you. Take care. Enjoy your week ahead or your weekend. Bye.